And I'm joined here now in the studio by Allison Sargent for a look at what's grabbing headlines in the written press. Hi, Allison. We're going to start off, of course, with the G7 summit. It does kick off today in Quebec. What are we seeing?
Well, we're seeing a lot of focus on that seventh sort of odd man out member of the G7. This is, of course, Donald Trump. Papers saying he's coming in like a wrecking ball, which I thought made the front page of this week's Economist quite appropriate. You can see there Trump a la Miley Cyrus, if you remember the singer's music video for her song Wrecking Ball. The Economist is more generally talking here about U.S. foreign policy, but there are many depictions, particularly of the G7 summit, from cartoonists today. In this next one, we have Trump as Darth Vader in the Courrier International. They're calling him the summit's phantom menace. Although the menace has become real enough that many papers are calling the G7 summit the G7-1 or the G6+1 summit, as we see in this cartoon from the Journal du Montréal. And Trump there at his lonely end of the table is accusing the host, Justin Trudeau, of planning to burn down the White House. Now, this is a reference, if you missed it, Molly, to earlier this week when Trump, in a phone call with Trudeau, said that Canada was a national security threat to the United States because they had burned down the White House during the War of 1812. But if you know your history, as many people pointed out to Donald Trump, it was actually the British who burned down the White House because Canada was not yet a country.
No, indeed. And actually, I like that first cover that we saw. It looked like he was wearing Doc Martens when he was being a wrecking ball. Just like some purple Docs. Always good. Okay, let's cross now over to Burundi. This is where we've got the president, Pierre Nkurunziza, has decided not to seek another term in office in 2020, a surprise move.
Right. This announcement was a big surprise because Burundi had just voted last month in a referendum to extend term limits, which many saw as sort of paving the way for Nkurunziza to seek another term. Now, Nkurunziza firmly denied that that was his motivation in his announcement yesterday. Iwaku Burundi has published excerpts on their website today. Nkurunziza said that he did not amend the constitution for his own benefit. He said that's actually what enemies want people to believe, and he warned people against falling into that trap.
But we do hear some that are looking at the announcement and saying perhaps the president is actually laying a trap with this statement.
Yeah, many are saying that he's kind of the one setting the trap with this. Another paper from Burundi uses a French expression that basically boils down to the promises of a dictator only apply to those who are gullible enough to believe him. So this paper does not believe him for a second. They predict that in a few months, actually, we could see a big show of sort of staged marches of people urging him to stand for re-election. Or they say Nkurunziza could take a leaf out of Vladimir Putin's book and go from one position to another and sort of to remain in power that way, as Putin went from president to being prime minister and then back again. That's more or less what the French paper Le Monde is predicting he'll do, except in an even more extreme way, actually. Their headline here reads, Nkurunziza renounces presidency for life, but not monarchy. And the paper notes that Nkurunziza has been in recent months visiting sites around the country with historical royal significance. Most tellingly, Le Monde points out that one of the less talked about parts of this referendum voted last month actually opened the door to reestablishing monarchy in Burundi. And they write that that aspect of the referendum had been inexplicable until now.
Interesting. All right. Well, we'll have to, of course, wait and see there. But let's turn now to another African leader who has successfully held on to power. That is Paul Kagame in neighboring Rwanda. Now, he recently had a visit from an American celebrity, and the visit flew under the radar. Tell us more.
Right. Now, some of our viewers might already have known about this visit, but it was news to me today. Paul Kagame met with Ellen DeGeneres, the American TV talk show host, and her wife, Portia de Rossi. Now, they were meeting to discuss the couple's support for Rwanda's mountain gorillas through a wildlife fund. But according to courts, it was a significant visit because they are a very high-profile lesbian couple in a region that's not very open to homosexuality. Now, gay marriage isn't legal in Rwanda, but the country is sort of an exception. It's in the region. It has a more open climate than neighboring Burundi and Kenya. And courts here writes that while Kagame is sort of a divisive figure, he does have a lot of influence in the region, particularly when it comes to gender rights. And they say this visit could actually be a turning point in East Africa when it comes to gay rights.
Well, let's turn to a country with a poor record on gay rights, and we've got Chechnya, and they're preparing to hold the Egyptian national team ahead of the World Cup next week.
Right, the Egyptian team is arriving this weekend to begin training in Chechnya, and The Guardian reports that Chechnya's leader, Ramzan Kadyrov, for him, hosting the Egyptian team is part of a twofold political ambition. They say that ambition involves becoming Vladimir Putin's envoy to the Middle East, and also sort of being the de facto voice of Muslims abroad. Now, this comes as Chechnya has been coming under quite a bit of Western scrutiny for human rights violations. There were reports last year that gay men were being held and abused in detention centers. At the time, Kadyrov responded to criticism by saying it was impossible because there are no gay people in Chechnya. So basically, in addition to Putin sort of trying to bolster his political image through the World Cup, well, Chechnya's leader is also one to watch for doing that.
Now, speaking of Russia, we've got the country might have a hard time raising their standing on the football field. That's because, well, the team just got bumped down in the standings.
Right. They are now 70th place in the FIFA standings, which makes them the lowest ranked team participating in the World Cup. And just after them is Saudi Arabia, which is actually good news for Russia because it gives them a chance at winning at least one game because they will be playing Saudi Arabia in that opening match next week. So the two bottom teams facing off. To bring luck to Russia's teams, actually, the Moscow Times is reporting that Russians have been posting images of themselves on social media with mustaches. And this is an homage to the coach of the Russian team, who you see on the right there, Stanislav Cherchesov. He has sort of an iconic mustache, I guess, for people in the country. And they're calling these mustaches of hope.
The girl's mustache looks
kind of real.
More formidable, yeah, exactly, than the coach. All right, Allison, thank you for that. And for more, you can always head to our website. That's france24.com/inthepress.